YouTube, it's your boy Sean Matrai here with the May of 2000, or I should say June of 2024 tier list. So we're going to go over here what is tiered and what is not. So this is my opinion on what the meta looks like. So tier 1 are the very best decks. Tier 2 are the decks that can compete with the tier 1 decks but have some minor weaknesses. Tier 3 decks have a lot of weaknesses, but they do have very high potential. Tier 4 is more of the same. I mean, Rogue is more of the same, but has, you know, major weaknesses to the deck where the minor weakness, the major upside may cause the, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 of these decks to top. Cog memes are decks that I think that are maybe luckily 1 tops, if any, and that's on a good day. So overall, you know, not really a great deck. And then Sewage Wish is just garbage. Don't play the deck. Cog memes is pretty much like, you really shouldn't invest in the deck. But Sewage Waste is just don't play the deck. Just don't, okay? It's not worth your time. Okay, so first comes Altergeist. Now, Altergeist right now I think is a tier 3 deck. I mean, not a tier 3 deck. It's a Rogue deck. I think it's Rogue. I don't think it's meta right now. I need Crimson's opinion on this one again. But I think it's Rogue right now. I think it's stronger because, like I said, there's not so many decks that just hate on Altergeist. It's like back removal left and right. As my boy Loom would say, I'll also link to YouTube's video as well on his description of tier list, and Team 6K should be coming out with one. But right now, I don't think Altergeist is like, you know, broken or anything like that. But, you know, it can run, how should I say? There have been some new builds going around with like Emperor Staff, and they would trigger that in a multi-faker and then, you know, not sit their back row, and then that's what gets them going, and then they run hand traps with like Artifact Lancia and stuff like that, you know, that kind of keep them going. And, you know, overall, you know, the new skill with Ghost Gal into Memory Gant, making Memory Gant is easier, and then they can go into Prime Banshee a lot easier, and into Hextia. So overall, I'm going to put in the Rogue. I don't think it's tier 0. I don't think it's top tier, but I think it's Rogue. Alright, BLS is Sewage Waste. I'm not... BLS is taking a long fall in 1 year. Right now, it just doesn't really do anything. Like, its turn 1 was never amazing. BLS was always one of those decks that was a turn 2 deck. It was never a turn 1 deck. That's just how BLS rolls. It was, you know, set a bunch of back row turn 1, hope to draw into your text, and then turn 2 you would just pop off. Plus, Lancia is in the meta, and this deck gets screwed over by Lancia hard. You Lancia, they're going second, and yes, all of a sudden they can't summon any of the BLSs, and outside of setting a few texts, they're just passing turn. So overall, yes, BLS is not good. It is a Sewage Waste deck. Do not invest in this deck. It is not worth your time. Alright, Blue Eyes is tier, I want to say it's tier 1 almost. I'd say it's probably the highest point of tier 2. Blue Eyes is still a really good deck because, again, in a meta that is centered around hand traps, it just doesn't care. You know, what are you going to do? Veiler? The only hand trap that it kind of cares about is maybe Lancia because you can't banish the back row. But, like, other than that, it just doesn't care. You know, a lot of what Blue Eyes does just doesn't care about floodgates, doesn't care about hand traps. You know, it just goes about doing its thing. The only thing I will say is it is weaker into agents because if you go into Invincible turn 1, agents pretty much say no to Blue Eyes. You can't activate your spells. It gets tough for them, and they suddenly need the right hand to win. So, no, I don't think it's as strong as Agents, but I definitely think it's a solid tier 2 contender right now. Probably the second best deck of the format. If you wanted to say 1A and 1B, you could argue Blue Eyes in the tier 1, but it's definitely tier 2. Definitely a really strong tier 2 deck. Constellar might be Rogue. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it actually might be a Rogue deck. The reason I say this is because the deck could play a flurry of out of hand traps to try to go after decks like Agents, stuff like that. But also the turn 1 is not bad. Like, maybe I'm being a little cope on this, but I can see a situation where this sits in the middle of the Rogue. It may unironically got a boost in the meta because it favors the hand trap meta, which I think favors the deck overall. Because it's more of an option for the deck to go second. But, you know, I think there's a lot of decks that just does what it does better. Like Sun Avalon could just do what it does better, honestly, you know. But, you know, Constellar fans, you know, maybe you slot into the Rogues category now. I think it could actually be a decent Rogue deck. Maybe. We'll see. Hero. Yeah, this deck is not good. It is Sewage Waste. It is not a good deck. Maybe it's a cog meme. Maybe it's a cog meme. Even then, maybe Zombie World with agents. Maybe Zombie World with agents. Maybe it's a cog meme. Alright. We'll put it in cog meme for now. Right now, this deck, you know, can make Zombie World, so that's pretty much his gimmick going for it. Other than that, this deck doesn't really do anything, and it's, you know, probably a cog meme in this meta, but, you know, for it to be there, you know, it is what it is. But Zombie World probably keeps it there. But going second, yeah, I don't see this deck doing really anything into big decks, like Agent or Sun Avalon or whatever. Evil Eye might actually be a decent rogue deck. Because, again, it's turn 1. It's very similar to Infernoble. She went on untargetable, a monster effect gate. And, you know, overall, it could pretty much do some things. Going second leaves very much to be desired. But, you know, overall, maybe just a solid rogue deck for the board. It can end on turn 1 again. A lot of the decks that you'll see getting the cog memes in the rogue. You know, rogue is a step above cog memes because I think it could go a little bit going second better than some of these rogue decks. But you tell me what you feel, Evil Eye players, but right now I'm putting it in Rogue. Alright, this we have somewhere else, but we'll go over this right now. Cyberse. Cyberse is not good. I hate to say this, but it is not a good deck. It is a Rogue deck. It is a mid-level Rogue deck. And I don't know if it's... I mean, it's stronger than Altergeist, in my opinion. It's stronger than a lot of these decks. Yeah. I would say it's probably somewhere within here. The problem with Cyberse is a few things, alright? Now, originally I thought this deck was going to be top tier, but because of the way the meta is structured, I don't think so anymore. The reason why is because this deck will lose to hand traps. It really will. That's kind of the biggest dilemma. As well as that if you go with agents going first, a lot of what this thing wants to do, going second, relies around you activating spells. So, for example, mining, rollback. If you play the salad package, circle. DD, the DD spell, right? I forget what it's called. Whatever it is. DDR, Different Dimension Reincarnation. Those are all spell cards. Chaos Greed. Okay? So, once they set up their spell negate and invincible, what are you doing? Realistically. You know, you have to out that plus 2 disruptions. So, at that point, you're pretty much saying, well, what business do I have here? And without your spell cards to extend, you're probably realistically losing to 1 negate. 1 flip down, 1 book, whatever. So, overall, you know, the fact that this could lose to a hand trap on Cyber Switch going first, and going second, this could really much lose to, you know, Agents or Sun Avalon because they have too much going for it. And as well as Sun Avalon basically running 9 hand traps and 21 cards. Chance of 55% to probably open up about 2 of them, or around 60%. Yeah, I don't see Cyberse really doing too much. I think that the deck is really cool, and I think once the meta cools down, it can definitely find its way into the top tier position. But as of right now, it'll be another Playmaker deck that just doesn't make the cut. Playmaker's 3rd failure in a row, almost. Well, I wouldn't say failure, but I would say up-and-coming inspiration, but for right now, it's not good. Alright, Live Twin is Sewage Waste. This deck is just not good anymore. You know, everyone raved about this deck about 9 months ago. Hey, I get to summon out my Live Twin combo. And then about 3 or 4 techs, and I'm gaming. The problem is with Live Twin is that none of really what it does anymore going first is just relevant. You know, every deck going first with a 1-card combo just does what it does better. And plays through hand traps and does things. Maybe I'm a little greedy, maybe I could put this in cog memes and it'd be fine. But the reality is nothing that Live Twin do turn 1 really scares too many decks. I will be a little bit nicer, I will move this up to cog meme, but I don't see this as being a real meta contender. I guess if you go first with 4 techs, then you can win matchups, but again, that's a lot to ask for. And then going second, this deck is pretty much non-existent. It is, I am really fighting between cog memes and sewage waste, but cog memes it'll be. I think this deck is pretty much non-existent going second, to be honest with you. And then, yeah, it's just not a fun time for Live Twin players. Galaxy Eyes is a tier 3 deck. Not tier 3 deck. It's a rogue deck. Maybe. Yeah, it's a rogue deck. It's... Again, the turn 1... I don't even know if it's a rogue deck or it's a cog move at this point, but... Like, the problem is like, its turn 1 is really good. Its turn 2, again, it's just like, it doesn't do anything. It's a whatever floodgates, current boards, it does. It was a cool deck before because it actually had a shot at being tier 3 because it could actually do a few things on turn 2 if you had the good enough right hand. But in this meta, I just don't see it. I don't see in a world where Galaxy Eyes is going to be topping very many events and doing really overall. I mean, there might be some sneaky tops in there, which I could see, but overall, it's just not the best at the current juncture. Cosmo is sewage waste. And this one I am not moving, because Cosmo just doesn't do anything. It ends on untargetable bodies, which is cool, but then there's a lot of decks that do that. Infernoble Knight can end on an untargetable and indestructible Charles. Evil Eye can end on an untargetable and indestructible boss monsters. Yes, having a Dark Destroyer pop on turn 2 is great, but in the age of I go second into 4 disruptions kind of deal, it's not looking very pretty. And the fact that you can't OTK agents, it's probably not looking too great. Now, I will say that there are things that, you know, Cosmo could do that agents may or may not care about. I mean, that Cosmo may or may not care about. You know, like summoning Dark Destroyer at agents maybe not having the best out to, because like a lot of their removal does target. But some builds are running Quantum Dragon, so like if that would ever come up, they just make a Quantum on the follow-up, and then you would be toast after that. So, yeah, you know, you're not clearing all their bodies regardless. Oh, no, well, never mind. They have Charles. Charles is non-target pop, so you kind of have to erase that from my mind, because Charles is just non-target pop, so that's kind of out of the question. So they do have that as an option if they really wanted to. But that's like one non-target pop, and then more of like having Hyperion and all that does target whatnot. But overall, again, like, I don't see this deck being that great. I think Cosmo kind of needs to draw the perfect hand for it to do anything. So, you know, maybe it's a cog meme. I was going to keep it at sewage waste. I don't know. Why am I debating this? I guess some decks that don't have untargetable outs can push it here, but it just feels worse. Either destroy the win. I'm leaving it here for now. Lunalight is... it's a cog meme. I mean, it can do some cool things turn 1. Nightmare. Evil Swarm Nightmare against agents. Of course, if you don't get hand trapped. You know, you can make... Well, I mean, they can play through hand traps. They can make Nightmare through hand traps, so they really don't care. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, Moonlight really don't care too much about hand traps at all. Depending on what they open up. But overall, a lot against some of the decks, their boards are just not enough. That's kind of the problem. And going second against agents is not fun, because the minute they figure out that you're on Lunalight, they're just going to end on the spell negate, which, by the way, negates your Tiger, negates your Luna Fusion, negates your Wolf. I don't see what you're doing there, but, you know, it be what it be. You know, overall, the deck is, you know, low-end rogue, maybe at best, but high-end cog meme, I feel. Yeah, Medolce is garbage. Sorry, Safety, but the deck doesn't do anything right now. For every, like, it was, you know, somewhat cog meme. I was starting to climb up the ladder as we got into, like, sheer meta, where you could argue to shuffle things in. But to be honest with you, going turn 1 doesn't really feel beneficial, and going turn 2 does not feel beneficial either. You know, it takes one Veiler for this deck to die. If they Veiler out your Chocolate out of mode, you're pretty much screwed. If they Ghost one of your Chocolate out of mode, you're pretty much screwed. This deck doesn't really banish, so it's got that going for it. That you're, well, I guess no. It does banish if you go for Hook-Kick, so if you have to summon Hook-Kick, I guess you could get hit by the Lancia. But there are ways to mitigate around Hook-Kick, I would suppose. So, but overall, the problem is the turn 1 doesn't really threaten anything, and the turn 2 isn't really great either. So, overall, yeah. It is sewage waste. It is. Mayakashi. Oh my gosh, this has fallen quite considerably. It's a cog meme. Wow. I like Maya, but, you know, the problem is, again, it's all these floodgates going second. It's just not good. Like, the minute you get Summon Breakered, I don't know what this deck does. You know, the minute they Summon Breaker you, you're kind of just dead unless you have an amnesty, because everything you do relies on you going every combo. Like, even if you wanted to make the Link 2 and send everything to the grave, you're just going to make the Link 2 and you're gonna get shellacked. You're going to make the Link 2, and then it's going to be like, well, my turn's over. Okay, that's it for me. You know, overall, yeah, this deck's not good. Okay. I'm just going to keep this aside. This isn't really much of anything here. Yubel is sewage waste. Yes, yes. And a lot of old decks going into sewage waste. Yubel does literally nothing that any of this meta cares about. The turn 1 of ending on Yubel and Kluger. Well, I mean, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. There is so many decks that just pump right through that. If you're playing, for instance, if you play Agents, you can book the Kluger, then you can pop it. Because if it's face down, it will not float. For Yubel, the Ultimate Nightmare, they're just going to pop it. And you're in for a really sad day. If you go up against Sun Avalon, then they just negate all your crap and attack you over with a 4K beater over Yubel, the Ultimate Nightmare. Overall, this deck is not good, and it is just bad. Unless somebody can prove me otherwise, I think there's like so many other better options that you could be playing in the meta, but, you know. Quantum, I'm sorry, but Ogdoadic is, you know... I mean, you get land. I mean, this deck, you know, I mean, you tribute monsters in the field, so maybe you don't care about lands. Yeah, I have to look more into that, but there is a lot of hand traps that kind of hurt this deck. Like if you get, I guess if you get Veiled at the right time, I really need more confirmation in this. But if you get Veiled or Mourned at the right time, it seems pretty rough for Ogdoadic. So right now, I'm gonna put it. Probably is the highest level. Cosmo is not. I'll move Cosmo up a tier because I can see a world where maybe Cosmo gets bumped. But overall, you know, overall it's not really great. Phantom Knight. Okay. Phantom Knight is rogue. I don't think this deck is going to be top tier moving forward. Now I'm gonna put this at like the highest end of rogue over all of these decks. Because Phantom Knight is still really darn good at what it does. The problem is, everybody and grandmother's uncle's cousin is maining Lancia. And there are decks like Rocket, which haven't really, you know, gotten true taste of the meta yet, which I think is going to be really top tier. We're going to talk about it. That just don't care. They'll search Lancia. You know, and then the problem is at that point is it's just a coin flip. I wouldn't even call it a coin flip because if Rocket opened Lancia, you're losing. But if they search Lancia turn 1, then you've already lost. And Agent can do it too. So, at that point, like, you have two decks that just search Lancia. Which, to me, doesn't really favor PK being in the meta conversation. Now, I know some people have top, but I also think that's because people are figuring out builds and wanting to figure out how to build certain decks. Now, I get people love this deck, but I don't know. I feel like PK is going to be more rogue than ever. I still think it's the best rogue deck, and it's on the fritz of tier 3, but right now, I just don't see it as top tier. I think it's, you know, everybody and grandmother's uncle playing Lancia, it's kind of in the rough spot. Alright, Perform Mage is top tier, and I think it's tier 3 or tier 2. Perform Mage is really, really good. It's in a good spot because I don't think a lot of what it does, other than Lancia being an issue on Damage Juggler, but that's like doesn't stop them from playing the game. They can just use it for a follow-up. I don't think Perform Mage cares so much about hand traps. I think less so now because they go into the Trap Tricks package, which pretty much they don't need to use Reliona to summon out whatever body they want to get on the field to make their fusion. Yeah, so now you can pretty much cut that out and run, not care so much about any hand traps in the hand trap meta. I think that gives it strength, and I think it gives it, you know, some positivity moving forward. So I think overall, probably on the weaker end of the tier 2 decks, but I still think overall this stays in the top tier spot. You could argue it down here, but I still think it could remain as like high end tier 2. Okay. Frank Kids is... I mean, it's even below. We've hit below Yubel. It's not good. They don't have Meow. They don't have anything that makes them good. The funny thing is that they had the crap that made them good. They would actually be relatively good in this meta because the deck doesn't care about Lancia at all. But, you know, overall, and they could also play through Veil or whatever not. But, you know, I think overall, if they get a buff in the upcoming boxes, then I could see the deck being pushed to the top tier category. But right now, it's just not good. Bottom line, this is just the worst deck probably on this list. Unless I find some, rare and obscene deck. It's just not there. It's probably the worst deck in the last 10 boxes. Alright. Ray Raptor is Cog meme. It's not meta. The problem is that you say, oh, the deck has a really good turn 1. But I can tell you this. About 15 other decks on this list also have a really good turn 1. Yeah, granted. This deck can end on 7 disruptions. That's if you don't get hand trapped. You don't go second. And overall, I just think that there are a lot of better decks that could just do better doing in those situations. Now, the deck is really cool. I think I would actually throw it probably here. I don't know. I would throw it over Maya. But overall, yeah, it still lacks. But it could be. But hell, is it fun to play? It is really fun to play. Red Eyes is Rogue. Yeah, it is Rogue. And I think it's actually behind a select amount of these decks. Because I think Red Eyes just lose to Lancia. And again, if Rocket become top tier, and if you have, how should I say? And if you have agents, they can search Lancia. If you go up against agents, they search Lancia against you, and you're cooked. Because then you have really no way to play the game. And you end up passing turn, and then agents just go wham, bam, 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 bam on the next turn. But also, they don't even need to search Lancia, because they can just make Summon Breaker on you. Which at that point, 4 disruptions to Summon Breaker is a good luck, have fun, and move on with your life. So, after all of that, I still hold Lancia. I mean, this deck is probably Rogue, low Rogue. I still see it people topping with it, but overall, it's not good. It's not that good. Rocket. Now, this is the deck I really want to get into. Alright, we'll talk about this later on. Rocket is high potential to be the second best deck behind Bulls. Right up there with Sun Avalon, because I think Sun Avalon might be ahead of those 2 decks overall. But Rocket is really looking good. I want to give a huge shout out again to my boy Loom, Duel Links Best Decks. If you don't follow him, please do. Link in the description below. He came out with a video showcasing off how really strong this deck can be. And I've seen a lot of people comboing off with Ibley. And it looks really exciting and really fun. And also going second with Leviathan here and a lot of different things you can do. I think Rocket is really having high potential. And also searching Lancia seems just gross. Searching Lancia in this meta is just a huge boom. So, keep this here right now. And I think that's another reason, one of the reasons why I put these decks off the tier list. It's because I think Rocket's going to get a huge boom. So some of this may be a little bit prediction-based. Well, that's what generally tier list is. But, just going on that. Shadol is tier 3. It is not tier 1. It is not tier 2. It is tier 3. I think that other than Blue Eyes, there's no really favorable matchups, to play this deck. I mean, yeah. The good news about Shadol is it doesn't give a shit about Lancia. Excuse me, terminology. It doesn't give anything about Lancia. It doesn't care. So, the good news is, when you don't care about Lancia, then this deck is, pretty strong in that regard. The problem is, if you go second against agents, and they make the spell negate on you, then it's not looking great. At that point, it's like, well, go next. For the most part. Unless you draw a hand trap to stop them. It's not looking great. Okay. Next is Shiranui, and Shira, my beloved, is fallen into Rogue. I love Shiranui. I really do. I love this deck through thick and thin, through the painstaking moments that we've had, and the league tops I've done with it. It's one of my favorite decks. However, I can't be on the cope, and I really think this is a Rogue deck. Again, the problem is Lancia and a bunch of hand traps, and also agents. And I know they say agents a lot, but the reality is they can banish Spectral Sword out of the grave on their first turn, and then on top of that, throw a bunch of negates on the field, including a spell negate, which turns off your Gold Sark, your Ghost Mourner, your Ghost Meat Squirrel, and then suddenly all your spells start dying, and then everything really starts to crumble really quick, and then you start realizing, oh, well, I have no place to make. And then, yeah, overall, I mean, a lot of these decks just out-power creep. In the Lancia format, these decks just drop down a tier, to be real with you. Sky Striker is a rogue deck. It's probably mid to back rogue. I think it's kind of like behind these decks over here. I think overall it's like, it's fine. Like, it's fine where it is, but going second's okay. Again, Agent, again, precedes a problem on the end of the spell negate, but, you know, they can't, the problem is, like, I almost want to even say they're not even rogue, they're almost a cog meme, because the more I think about it, like, they're gonna lose to, they don't run hand traps, which just, like, going second isn't really great. So you more rely on the going first. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put them as a high-end cog meme. I'm gonna do it. I don't know. Like, I could see a world where I could see plenty of worlds where this is rogue, and maybe I'm a little bit too low. But again, like, when you don't run hand traps, every going second into agents. Like, if agents get so popular, I see this deck really becoming a problem. Being here, like, if agent becomes really popular in the World Championship qualifiers, I see this deck being a cog meme. And I say this because going second against agents every time will just be a loss. Like, there's no, okay, this deck is bad going second. Okay, maybe we could do something about it. No, there isn't. Because the minute they activate it and turn off all your spells, you're just dead. Like, or you're like, oh, okay, well, I can't play. So, yeah, there's that. Alright, 10 years a GOG meme. Well, I don't even know. I think, oh, yeah. It's probably where Maya is right now. Again, Lancia. If you get Lancia to 10 years, oh, it's not great. Also, like, I mean, it's definitely good enough to cog. Maybe, I don't even know if someone really does well enough to get to top with this, but it's probably even behind here. I don't know. Like, ahead of Live Twin, I don't know. Somewhere in this jingle jangle, but, you know, overall, it's just not great. TG, it's, TG's a weird one. I mean, you know what? I'm going to put it with Constellar. Because I think that this deck could actually be pretty okay. But I don't think it's fair for me to put it above Red Eyes. So I'm going to put Red Eyes above this. And I'm going to put this here. Okay. TG is interesting. And the reason why I codename interesting is because now they're coming up with combos that said Zombie World. So now your turn 1 against Agent is actually looking pretty okay. Because, like, Zombie World really slows them down. So they can send it off from Beatrice to get Necro, Banshee, run a bunch of hand traps, and then stop agents that way. So, it's not looking bad. The only problem is it turns off your own booster Raptor, so you may want to run like a Tackle Crusader or something, so that you just have another form of interruption or whatnot. But, it's looking okay. I still don't think it's good, but I think it's okay. You know, I think it's, again, where the Constellar or the Red Eye Zombie is. I think it could be, I could see a person topping with this. I could see it happening. I'm not saying it will happen, but I could see it happening. It's not the end. It wouldn't shock me if somebody talked with this. Just because of what it can do. Okay. Now. Next is... alright. I'm not even going to waste time. It is... I don't know. High-end sewage waste. Okay. Like, what are you doing on turn 1? You know? I mean, yeah, you have the ability. The only advantage this has... I may throw this in the cog meme. Is because this can draw in the hand traps. That's it. Otherwise, there's no reason to play this deck. That's pretty much it. You know? I mean, yeah, it's what it is. Alright. Another... this deck is sewage waste as well. Go first or lose. You know, you set up your Boulder Rock, or if you go second, you hope to draw Super Poly, or you just lose. That's pretty much the meta it's in right now. Lancia doesn't totally screw this deck over, and there's not a lot of decks running Crow, but there are decks running Valor. And Warner. And Valor is the big thing. I'd say Valor is the biggest issue. Warner they can force out your Boulder Rock with, but they can negate it. But Valor on one of your tuners would be pretty terrible. But overall, it's not really great, you know, and there are decks that can break through a turn 2. I'll do it a justice. I'll throw it in a cog meme. I'll throw it here. But, you know, it's not the best. Infernoble Knights. Okay, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's... I think everyone's low on the deck. I think it's a rogue deck. Probably... Here. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. I think Infernoble's turn 1 is actually really good. It's better than Evil Eye because Infernoble's end on an... I know some people can say, oh yeah, but Evil Eye can end on a targetable. The difference is Infernoble Knights end on Gearfree, which steals their opponent's monsters. It's actually better than... I think Infernobles are better than Evil Eye going second because Gearfree forces out threats. I think that Charles also being a non-target pop is actually really fantastic. It's kind of like Evil Eye in what it does, but I think that Infernobles have a higher ceiling here, and they can grind off like a stop flow and do a bunch of other things. I do not think this deck is top tier in the slightest. I think it's kind of like, you know, somewhere in here. I don't think it's top tier. It hurts because I really want this deck to be good. Because when I played this deck, I really started having fun. So I love this deck. I think it's a ton of fun. I really want to see this deck get a boost so it can go in the top tier. But yeah, right now it's not top tier. All right, Rocket. Oh, I already did Rocket, so this is just a redo. Agents are the best deck. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna hide it. I'm not gonna, you know, hide under the blanket because everyone doesn't want to rally here, but it's the best deck in the game. Like, the problem is like, it has a board that pretty much beats almost any deck in the meta going first. You know, it's not like, okay, the board it makes is so singular that it beats this kind of decks but loses to this kind of deck. Now, this deck can vary its boards based upon whatever the matchup is. So if you go turn 1 and you go up against Sky Striker, you enter your spell negate. If you go up against Blue Eyes, you enter your spell negate. If you go up against Shadowland, you enter your spell negate. If you go up against, you know, a deck that wants to heavily special summon, maybe something like Cybers, okay, my Summon Breaker. Or I can still have my spell negate. You know, the bottom line is this deck can end on whatever the heck it wants to end on, given whatever matchup it runs into. And ending on 4+ disruptions is pretty nasty. Now, the one thing I will also say is this deck does not die to one hand trap. There are 2 card combos that play right through Lancia. There are 2 cards, so even if you manage to Lancia this deck, it's not dead. If you have Lancia and Valor, it's going to be a struggle for them, but they can still have hand traps in the game that can beat it. So, like I said, overall, it is the best deck. It clearly is the best deck in the game. Is it tier 0? No, it's not tier 0. It's not on the level top yet, especially going second. Going second is significantly worse than Takyat. It can go second. It's decent at going second, as Loom said in his video. It's decent going second. You know, but overall, like, again, it's not, you know, it's not, it is the best deck. Like, it is the best deck. Like, there are going to be many tops with this in the KC Cup in the Worlds. And I'll probably be playing it all the way through. So, you know, expect that. Unless I fall in love with Rocket. But, you know, I love Rocket a lot too. So, you know, Rocket's kind of in this rectangle of criminals. But, okay. Sun Avalon is tier 2. I almost want to put this as tier 1. Almost want to put this up here. It's like tier 1A. Yeah, screw it. I'm gonna do it. Okay. I'm gonna do it. Yeah, I'll put Blue Eyes as tier 2. We'll keep this here. Sun Avalon is a really good deck right now. It is a really strong deck. This, actually, there is a world that if Rocket pops off like it should be popping off, it might actually go to tier 1. There is a shot that Rocket gets right into the contention with all 3 of these decks. There is that shot. I really do think that's possible. But right now, Sun Avalon is looking really strong. The fact that it can run 9 hand traps and 21 cards is ridiculous. At the same time, it can also play through a hand trap by searching your Sun Avalon, whatever the level 1 is that negates. I can't remember its name, but it's really good. It can play through Valor. It can play through a lot of hand traps. It's looking really strong. So yeah, I would say that's where it is right now. And also going second isn't too shabby either. You could go through it and instantly threaten lethal like a Thrasher. And then, like, on turn 3, just blow up your opponent's stuff. So it's really, really good. Okay. Next, we are running Trap Tricks is... Oh, my gosh. It's not... Oh, my gosh. It's here. That's where it is. Maybe a Cog Mevo. I don't know if I can put this below Striker. Not the kind of where this is. It's just not great. You know, I mean... Using trap cards to beat Aegis isn't a bad strategy, but the problem is that it doesn't do enough against what they do. That's my dilemma with them. And that agent will still win out in the end, because unless you can... I mean... Can it beat agent even with Tretch going second? But if they pop your Tretch, you're kind of dead. Or pop a trap that doesn't go to the graveyard. Yeah, it's somewhere here or here. I'll put it here. I'll be a little bit nice. Alright, well, I'm not wasting time with this. There is a deck that is right there with Yubel. Okay, so there you go. S-Force is just not great anymore. It's just not good. Simply enough. Go second, you lose. That's pretty much what it is. Alright. Yeah, so that's going to be my tier list. I think right now, this is the way things stand. I think there is a limitation of what the top tier decks are at the current juncture. I mean, there is a chance that Phantom Knight does get... I do bump Phantom Knight back up into here, but right now, it's just like a whole bunch of cluster of decks stuck in the rogue. You know, I'm sure someone will pose an argument that, you know, one of these 3 decks that I put here could easily be bumped up. But, you know, overall, like... I just don't feel... I look at the meta and I say, yeah, I don't feel that any of these decks that are in that category here really do enough to really... Like, they have a hand trap weakness that, you know, some sort of weakness to hand traps that just, you know, limit it to getting into that top tier category. But that's going to be it for me. If you did see my cog run this morning, check it out. Next, we are playing Rocket. That will be tomorrow. If you do not want to miss my Rocket gameplay, follow me on Twitch. That's going to be Cog Run number 2. Because I really want to play Rocket, and I'm looking forward to it. So, Rocket, expect it. Because we definitely want to learn this. Okay. Until next time, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Go follow my boy Loom as well. Loom is an amazing dude. So, you know, he's a really great guy. So, if you don't know Loom, do so. Yeah, so until next time, follow, like, comment, subscribe, and peace. Bye, YouTube.